world blind. Give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
yeah. There's no mercy in this world, just hunger-thirsty persons in different versions. Each new update, that shit worsens. Why? Pull back the curtain and you'll see the different vermin. We all have different burdens that all seem to cause disturbance. Yo, so do me a favor, don't treat me like a neighbor. Don't need the different flavors of your problems just to savor. I've got my own issues, I need a comb to get through.
Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to a brand new the debut episode of NFL Talk with Rob. Basically, kind of just going around the league, just kind of just giving all NFL talk and all that good stuff. But before we get into it, if you guys are new, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit that subscribe button, make sure you ring that notification bell so you guys will not miss it of the upcoming content to the channel. What is going on, normal guy? For those who have not seen on my on the community post, me and Tyler are officially monetized. So if you guys want to help support the channel, there's the option for the super chats down below as well. Let me actually fix my damn camera because something's kind of not right. There we go. But yeah, so kind of get into off today's docket is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win the AFC South, which, to be quite honest, I think no one really is surprised about that. And the way that I see it is, you know, the NFC South is a horrible division to be in. And, you know, it's just one of those divisions where I would say, like, that's a division that nobody should win. If I be completely honest with you, God, good Lord, English is kind of hard, but so my apologies for that. But basically, in the way that, you know, like I said, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I mean, they still, you know, they ain't gonna go far. I definitely could see that, because let's be real, you've seen the amount of struggles that this team has dealt with this entire season. I mean, you also had the fucking Carolina Panthers in contention at one point. You also had the Saints at one point, and you know, it's just one of those things. Like, for me, I know this kind of is. I had this ridiculous thought, you know, say the NFC South should never fucking exist, because that entire division has not really been decent in quite some time. You know, it's just one of those divisions that it's just been a very inconsistent. It's been very bad, along with the AFC South. Now, the AFC South is going to be very interesting since, the Jacksonville Jaguars have an opportunity to clinch their division, which is not to say surprising, but I think we, especially with the state of how the Tennessee Titans have came to be, and it's like like the Titans are like we're a bunch in a free fall, and it's just one of those things like you expected a team like Jacksonville at least would at least try to make a shot at it, and unfortunately, not say unfortunate, but in the end, they actually took first place. Now they have to play the Titans at the end of the year in order to clinch that division and host a playoff game in the wild card round, especially for the AFC. But Tampa Bay, definitely they're going to be one of the few wild card teams here in the NFC, and it's it's going to be something to look into since let's be real. I mean, they have guys that just have a hard time staying healthy. Tom Brady has not looked like himself since all this personal stuff went down, which I will not get into, and all that good stuff. But next thing we got going on is the New York Giants who clinched a playoff spot for the first time since 2016. Now, I've said this plenty of times too, whereas, the Giants, I'll give them credit where credit is due. I mean, for a team that was dealing with the injury bug, especially late in the season here in the second half, not having a Dory Jackson, definitely not having their key pieces, despite the fact Kayvon Thibodeau getting into a lot of shit because of some issues, but that's besides the point. But, Brian Double has really done wonders for this Giants squad. And to be quite honest, I do think, is definitely going to get consideration for Coach of the Year. To really, it shows, has really revitalized Saquon Barkley. I think he still has want to become a better running back for that team. You also have Daniel Jones actually is playing some solid football, even though, he's been their leader rusher in terms of, getting rushing yards for the quarterback. But yeah, I mean, the fact that you don't have no wide receivers, I mean, at least try not to run Saquon Barkley into the ground. Yeah, the Giants are in the playoffs for the first time since 2016. Yeah, it's been quite some time. And if I'm the Giants, let's see hypothetically. I mean, hypothetically, they're definitely we'll see what happens with how far they're going to go in the postseason. But I do think going forward, I would say is try to at least get some more offensive lineup, especially on the interior. Let's get a couple of more defensive pieces and definitely know how to draft wide receivers because the Giants do not have wide receivers to save their ass. Darius Slayton can be there from time to time. They got to get rid of Kenny Galladay's contract, which I doubt no one's going to take on. Sterling Shepard is just, I would say he's injury prone, but he just at times had these freak injuries. Whereas, like, you just don't like these non-contact injuries. I appreciate that, Tino. I appreciate that. But, it's just the fact that, look, and it's good for Giants fans. I think they deserve him more than most outside of us Eagles fans and Dallas. I feel like, the Giants really is this well deserved. It wasn't easy, but they managed to still get the job done. With the Washington Commanders kind of just collapsing at this point. But, that's just how I see it. It's just, the Giants been, how do I say it? Probably the most like the face of the media, outside of Washington, it's been the face of mediocrity in the NFC East for the last, since after 2016, maybe. I mean, they've been mediocre in certain years. And, the fact that they even clinched the playoffs was actually with a better GM, better head coach, definitely get a decent coaching staff, that's for sure. And definitely dealt with some injuries along the way. Now, granted, you do have some guys banged up coming into Week 18 into our home in Philadelphia. Is that I would say one of those things that's like, I don't know, like it's really hard to describe. It's just how to describe the New York Giants. People think they were frauds. I mean, what team doesn't look like it? I mean, one team that definitely can show, which is for me, is the Minnesota Vikings, which I'll get to later in the show. But the Giants, now granted, they did have played some softer opponents like Carolina, and stuff like that, and teams like that. But it's just like to the point whereas, you know, like they just know how to get, they know how to find ways to win. I think a lot of times these quote unquote football fans actually don't know like is like how to like no win is easy enough, and it's like one of those things. It's like I just it's really mind boggling. But going forward, but before we get into it, let's talk about our sponsor, SeatGeek. Have you thought about saving money on tickets, whether it's sporting events, concerts, wrestling events, etc.? Use my promo code Philly Sports at checkout to save $20 off your order. That is PHILLYSPORTS, Philly Sports, to save $20 off. Absolutely. So you want to try to save money on tickets? Use my promo code Philly Sports. Just save $20 off on SeatGeek.com to make sure you can get wrestling tickets, concert tickets, whatever the case may be. Check that out down below. Absolutely, Steve. Absolutely. And also check out the link just down below for my merch shop is too. You want to check those out too. And also, we are still partnered with Fanatics. Make sure you check the link down in the description down below for, and you'll cop yourself some merch. But going on further, going back to some Eagles news and whatnot. Obviously we have just a show dedicated to the Philadelphia Eagles, but that's besides the point. Is that the Jalen Hurts is available for Week 18 now? Jalen Hurts the last 2 weeks has been quote unquote unavailable, which at times the coaching staff's kind of really trying to play this off, and it's really kind of it's really annoying a lot of Eagles fans, even myself. It's been, I don't know. It's really hard to describe. It's just like just the bullshit, I would say, at the same time. But, Hurts is coming off a sprained shoulder after their matchup with the Chicago Bears. My apologies. Is that, to be honest, it's ridiculous of just how much our coaching staff is putting this off. And because, the fact that, it's just like some of the coaching staff is not really going to try to get on these players at the same time. And, it's one of those things that's like, I don't know, like it's really hard to describe and just really, I don't know, like it's really hard to really describe just how ridiculous it actually sounds. Is basically what I'm trying to get at. And, Jalen Hurts, you definitely see the last 2 weeks. Yeah, you definitely tell that this team definitely needs him, especially now, we've dealt with the key injuries too, especially with Josh Sweat. Hopefully, for what we've been hearing, that he is day-to-day with a neck injury, but I think he's mostly not going to play. I mean, at one point, we had to clinch, and, this is the opportunity we do have to clinch and definitely get that first round bye and actually get that rest off. Which I would say at this point, because Gardner Minshew isn't it, because we've seen that the last 2 weeks has not shown to be a decent backup, and it's already bad enough. Like if your quarterback doesn't do well, your backup quarterback doesn't do well. For a lot of fans, calling for Ian Book to be put in. Yeah, it's really that bad that Gardner Minshew is actually terrible, and I think that's probably a reason why he's a backup quarterback for a reason. I don't know. It's just one of those things. It's like, at some point, like Nick Sirianni's got to realize, like, what's at stake, with Dallas playing Washington. And obviously, knowing that the Chargers are definitely resting their starters, we have to take advantage of that. And for sure, if you're going to have to, then screw it, because from what we've understanding, like he is coming back for 100%. At the same time, but it's just, to be honest, I don't know, like, what do you have to lose? Like we've struggled down the path. I mean, we struggled against the Bears, definitely for sure, for a team that's rebuilding. First of all, it should have beaten the Saints, but that was kind of ridiculous, I would say, to start off. And, I definitely lost out a tough one against Dallas on Christmas Eve. And quite frankly, I do not have faith in Gardner Minshew for another straight start. That's the reason why I would say, if Hurts is ready to go, then put him out there. Let him take this team to the number 1 seed, clinch the NFC East, and actually rest. That's what I would do. Because for me, it's just like, I just cannot put my faith in a guy like Gardner Minshew, who, for lack of a better term, just kind of just was mentally checked out. And you had some of your teammates kind of, calling your ass out. Obviously, A.J. Brown, for not seeing that short at the same time. But what's good, Ryan? What is good, my guy? But shout out to the 4 that's in here, though. Make sure you hit the like button, hit that subscribe button. And also, we do have super chats as well, which I did, like I said, did post it on my community tab as well. So, if you guys want to help show support for the channel and also the videos that we posted here on the Philly Sports Talk podcast, we also got super thanks as well. You'll see that on the lower part of this stream, or the super chats if you're in the chat down below as well. But like I said, that's kind of irrelevant. But and especially getting Senior Gardner Johnson back, which is actually great. Definitely, same with Robert Quinn, who I don't exactly have faith in, but I mean, especially with the injury to Josh Sweat, I think I would not see the problem with that. What's good, Jerry? They should have, but like I said, this is all on the coaching staff. And want to try to play this off and just try to get this to collapse. Honestly, I will really have the number 1 seed with Hurts, if I be quite honest. Like, we should have, taken care of business against the Saints. First of all, who might I add, it's not a great play. It's not thank God they're not in the playoffs, because let's be real. Like I said, Dan Allen's not it's not a special type of coach. Dalton, like I told Eagles fans too, like, if you had to choose either Gardner Minshew or Andy Dalton as a backup quarterback, for me, I would just take Andy Dalton any day of the damn week, because I think he'll at least do somewhat better than Gardner Minshew in terms of. That's or the way that I see it is too, like, if you're up by so much, so basically the Giants see him going in week 18, then at that time, I think you definitely could use a rest your starters, probably say in the 4th quarter, I would say. Say you're up, I don't know, 35-15, let's say 35-10 per se, which did happen the last time when we played the Giants, where I think we were 35-10 to be exact. And, or no, I think it was like 35-16, whatever the case may be. I think, 35-16. And, let's put up 50 points on the Giants and definitely, give them like a, garbage time touchdown here and there to finally finish with the final score of 48-22. That's something that I think that Nick Sirianni and this coaching staff have to realize, like, that's the one way to clinch it and keep your starters at least mostly healthy towards to getting to start of the postseason. Now, actually, that would be the case, but actually, I want to go, before I go more into that, actually, I want to kind of talk about what just happened, took place, prior. So things could, the postseason could be a little bit changed up. It might get pushed back a little bit because of what's going on. Obviously, I did want to talk about the Bills and the Bengals game suspended, which me and Randy did that Monday night game. It was just, I think, 7-3 before under 6 minutes to play. And then, unfortunately, Damar Hamlin, from what we've been hearing, it has been very good news as of late. That he's responsive, doing, start breathing on his own. And, with everything that game got officially suspended, and let's be real, it's probably the best call by the NFL to not continue to play. But I will say, too, actually, that's more on the coaching staff, because the NFL actually wanted to add to that 5-minute waiting period. Now, I will throw the NFL on the grill as a whole because of what they wanted to try to do, especially after that traumatic incident with Damar Hamlin and T. Higgins. Now, I'll get to talk about T. Higgins in just a second. And be quite frankly, though, it's like, like when you're trying to make a clean tackle, and and there's going to be some people who will be definitely calling out for sure. That's for sure. But we'll get to that in just a moment. Yeah, I mean, we need, like, me and Ray, like, that game didn't get even finished through the first quarter, and from what unfortunately, Damar Hamlin, I should say, my apologies, went into cardiac arrest that night after a accidental blow to the chest, and like he got up, like he thought we thought nothing was wrong, and then he looked like he was wobbling, then kind of just collapsed back onto the turf, and it's just like, absolutely, that's what I'm saying. Like that's probably the greatest news that I've seen because for a guy that's in his early to mid 20s, and I can say this too, for a guy who's never played the game of football, like that worries me. It's just, seeing a mom, see his like parents, see the fact that, see the 24-year-old actually had to go into cardiac arrest. That was scary to say the least. And like me, and if you go back to the that Monday night stream, me and Randy actually left off screen because obviously for Randy's for personal reasons, and I cannot actually understand that. And like I said, with all the absolutely. Speaking of Randy, what's good, my guy? Shout out to everybody that's in the chat, though. But before we go on with everything else, we do have an announcement, though. Me and Tyler, we are definitely holding a charity stream. For his the Chasing Ends Foundation. So if you guys want to come by, help donate, your guys are more than welcome to. Your guys are more than welcome to kind of help out. So we're going to give back, and we're going to start doing more charity live streams in the future, for Spinal Bonita, hopefully for me, for the autism awareness, and definitely mental health awareness too. So we're going to try to do as much charity streams and raise enough money as much as we can. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Randy, we are doing that as well. It's just kind of just talk a little bit, kind of shoot the shit and just kind of doing that kind of thing, do like a Q&A at the same time. And, the fact that we did get some very, very good news on Damar Hamlin, that's awesome. That is really awesome to see. And now and I will take, but yeah, like I appreciate everybody has to kind of come by for this very first episode of this show, which some of the content might change from week to week, depending on the episodes. But like I said, since we did get a lot of good news on Damar Hamlin, now the question remains, what's going to happen? Like, are we going to put his career in jeopardy, or like, where do we go from here? Because knowing that the NFL, for good reason, have been publicly criticized for not being for the players. And, but let's get further. Let's get my guy. Not really being for the players. And, this was sent back in 2011 where Roger Goodell said, I think Goodell said one interview where basically saying, it's just like the fact that you want to take, player safety more seriously. Unfortunately, about 9-10 years later, it's not looking great. And, perfect example of that X outside of what happened to Damar Hamlin, Tua Tagovailoa. I think that's kind of like, I want to say not the poster boy, and that's like the very wrong term you want to use, especially in this instance. What I mean by that is, like, we had this kid who's also 24 at the time as well, dealt with 3 concussions, one of which unfortunately put him in the hospital. And, we thought to ourselves, even myself included, when I did that game, I think they forgot who I was doing it with, but I think it might have been alone for that. But, after Tua suffered that concussion, probably the worst concussion that I've seen, on Thursday Night Football against the Cincinnati Bengals, and the fact that he was not moving, I was worried. I really was worried for him. Like, because I've actually kind of posed the question a couple times where should Tua actually hang up the spikes early? Because, I mean, the dude's 24. You dealt with 3 concussions. Now, one, which is, I would call, what's the word I'm looking for here? Just, I would say a lie the first time when he said he fell flat on his back, knowing that, and his, had whiplash against the Buffalo Bills, then say, oh, he had back spasms. I've actually had back spasms before. My back spasms does not make you woozy. That is a complete lie. Now, this is why a lot of times, and not just the NFL, even the Miami Dolphins are pretty much going to be rolling this kid. And that's the reason why I'm one of few to really publicly criticize, even with the platform that I have, and for good reason. The Miami Dolphins are not doing anything to help protect, Tua Tagovailoa. Hey, yes, we have known Tua had injury problems coming out of college. Dealt with the hip injury after in the into the senior year at Alabama, it's ridiculous that somehow the NFL does not give a crap about the player safety, because the fact that they said, if you're going to have say, oh, you're going to have a concussion, let's get you back out there. No. And this is the reason why this is why you saw changes in the concussion protocol. Now we might see, especially now that brings up to my next question with DeMar Hamlin, especially in that traumatic injury he's had, which let's be real, worried me even more. Like I can tell you, if you've not watched exactly what happened, my heart sunk for this kid. Like I said, 24 years old. And shout out to Mike Tomlin as well. Probably people, even though people might have different takes on Mike Tomlin, but you have to take it this way. Mike Tomlin, can go down, the fact that he's going to find a way to not have a losing record with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but that's besides the point. But the fact that he also talked about, how close of a bond he has with DeMar Hamlin, especially, for another fellow Pittsburgher. Mike Tomlin has known this kid since he was 12 years old, so almost half of his life. And, it's one of those things that's like, it's really, you don't want to see, as in terms of, just a football fan, and definitely a football coach too, that, this is very close and personal to you. In terms of, I would say, of Mike Tomlin, and you've seen, some analysts like Scott Van Pelt, shout out to him, and Ryan Clark, another good Pittsburgh Steeler, as well, actually said the exact same thing. It's just like, it's kind of ridiculous of how the NFL is not really caring for player safety. And, the fact, and this is why a lot of times, it's just going to the fact that, just how much Roger Goodell is very hated, and mostly for stupid reasons, but majority of the time is for good reasons. Obviously, the thought that the way how the concussion has been kind of handled, it has not been the best in terms of, especially of what's going on, especially with Tua. And you saw what happened to Luke Kuechly at one point, retired at the age of 28 due to 3 concussions. You also had just some minor freak accidents from here to here. Perfect example of a non-contact freak injury. Starting Shepard after one play where he just somehow tore his ACL, I think his MCL or ACL, what are the two to the 3 ligaments in his knee. And that's also an issue too. I think which a lot of times I would say has kind of, caused the NFL to, I'd say raise a concern, but at least, it's just, especially with how this artificial turf is, and it's really causing a lot, having injuries piling up left and right. But that's besides the point. And, the fact that, and, he's had some analysts too, just so the timing of this, of what they say, really know how to get under this, I would say, irritate at general, all NFL fans. We all know one in particular, Skip Bayless, and we all know exactly how we feel on him, which, especially after what we saw last week on, I think a couple of days ago on Undisputed. After, if you've not seen that clip, I highly recommend check that out. But one analyst in particular that I think a lot of NFL fans are kind of getting mad at is Bart Scott on his comments on T. Higgins. Now, T. Higgins, it's just like, the fact that, he could have ended that kid's career prematurely. And you probably would think, there's probably going to be people come in and say, oh, well, we'll get to the turf. We'll talk about the turf later down the road. But the fact of the matter is, the fact that I've seen T. Higgins get so much hate because it's like, people are like, call him like basically saying, that was, what we saw. If you looked, it's all over YouTube. Like, basically, if I can paraphrase it, is where, saying, he leaned with the crown of his helmet as a weapon or something like that. And you look at the replay, it was his shoulder to kind of make contact, unfortunately, make contact with the Hamlin's chest, which unfortunately stopped his heart and went to cardiac arrest. And I'm looking at this I'm thinking, I literally just shook my head. It's like, this is like, how inept do you have to say? Like I said, going back to what I said earlier about Skip Bayless, like, we exactly know how he feel on him, and and the worst time he could probably made that tweet, which said not just Eagles Twitter, but just NFL Twitter just went off. It's getting to the point where it's just like some analysts just should not have a platform. Let's be real. I mean, Skip Bayless is one of them. And now definitely Bart's. And yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's a freak accident waiting to happen. It was just unfortunately he made contact with the center of the chest where your heart is. I've seen doctors not just on YouTube. I've seen a doctor YouTube kind of talking about it. I've seen doctors on TikTok who are actually a heart specialist. Understand? Yeah, it's a freak injury. When that aorta just opened up, he actually made contact and just stopped the heart. And it's just like, and even T. Higgins himself, tweeted out, he was worried about Damar Hamlin. It's getting to this point where some analysts it's just like they're just going to ruin their careers. We saw it. We'll definitely see it with Skip Bayless. That's for sure. After what just transpired. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, is not this week, but the following week, Shannon Sharp was and I'll get to that. Like I said, I'll talk about that incident just a second, because that's the one thing I want to kind of get off my chest a little bit. Try to be as PG as possible since we are officially monetized. So, don't want to get that yellow dollar sign, but I'll try to be as PG as I possibly can. But basically, kind of how this all transpired was, like I said, after that tweet, pretty much called this game like irrelevant, which really, I would say ticked off the NFL, just the general NFL fan base. And Shannon Sharp wasn't there that week because obviously the following week, the prior week, he turned out to be a grandfather. So shout out to Shannon Sharp being a grandfather for the first time, which is great. And then obviously didn't come to work the following week. So Skip had to do the show by himself, basically saying his boss called and told me to quote unquote apologize, which that lead up to next week. Unfortunately, he kind of he very much backtracked and did not give no apology whatsoever. Basically tried to give him a quote unquote clarification, which was what I would consider a bunch of lies, which it's one of those things that's like, and the fact of the matter is this also, you can also take this back further. This all stemmed from the one episode of Undisputed where, basically, Skip just does anything to do whatever he wants for clicks, and it's getting to the point where it's going to get the NFL fan base. It has gotten the NFL fan base talking and pretty mad, and for good reason. And you have a guy like Shannon Sharp who has to deal with this crap, for a 3-time Super Bowl champion and an NFL Hall of Famer, and the fact that he even said this too. Yeah, I saw my brother Sterling Sharp get paralyzed on the field, like this, after what happened with Damar Hamlin, this was kind of like getting personal to him because he's seen something like this before. It's going to get to the point where it's just like Fox Sports is going to have to do something to get rid of Skip Bayless, or I think if I'm a Shannon, just quit and get my own show at that point, because that's really too much toxicity between those two. Yeah, absolutely. That's the most amazing news we had. I mean, first of all, we got some news that earlier that he said he was opened his eyes, was kind of responsive, and now he's kind of starting to get fully responsive. But like I said, that brings to the next question: where does he go from here? If he does get fully 100%, does he really consider going back to the football field? Because if he does, now granted, it's a slim to none kind of injury that he's unfortunately suffered. And I think someone brought up an interesting point that, and yeah, actually, I think, I don't want to say who it was, but yeah, he's not a vested player. So he's got to play another year of 3 games and be in order to get, the pension and whatnot for retired NFL players, which at some point when that next CBA agreement is going to come in, absolutely, like I said, absolutely, he should get rest and recover, but he has to think of himself too, knowing that he's not a vested player, a 6th-round draft pick by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously was a backup to Micah Hyde, who unfortunately dealt with a serious neck injury, which kind of kept him out. So my thing is just he's got to put into consideration, like I said, just rest and recover, but you has to think about the future of his career. Only at 24 years old, you know, and the fact that some analysts say, "Oh, this is what you're signing up for," which is absolutely sometimes it's not true at one point. But the injuries and stuff like that, yeah. I mean, Emilio Ocho, yes, I know how we as Eagles fans know kind of feel about him because he was not the greatest player that we ever had. But he did mention to say, yeah, we could deal with broken bones and torn ligaments and shit like this. But what had happened to Damar Hamlin, we have not seen, unfortunately. So is one of those things. It's like, and the fact that he's not a vested player, he's getting paid. What I think over just, I don't know, probably, and it's sad for a kid like that not be a vested player, and and I think this is what's going to happen when the next CBA agreement is going to have. That's going to be able to be changed, which I really do think that should be changed, in my honest opinion. If I have to be quite honest, just because after what, like I said, with Teagan, even T. Higgins even went to the hospital himself, kind of try to visit. In the Bengals fan base, like shout out to the entire Bengals fan base, actually went to the hospital to try to visit him. And it's like, it's one of the best things I was in terms of just one of his fan base really showing support for just a young kid trying to live out his dream. Unfortunately, a freak injury kind of cut it short. And it's just one of those things. It's like, it's like me and Randy, like when me and Randy did that game on Monday night, we couldn't just speak. We were just we were shocked of what we just saw on primetime television. It's just one of those things. It's like, it's the one thing, and I actually admit this too. I actually did lose some sleep because of that. It's just one of those things. It's like, something I can relate to for a guy that's in their early 20s, at 24, 25 years old. It's like one of those things that's like, it's something you don't want to really think about. It's, I don't know, but and T. Higgins, man, no, T. Higgins really does not deserve the hate that he's getting, because the fact that of what obviously was clean hit, which I think Bart Scott, in my opinion, should also get fired for his comments as well at the same time, which for a guy that has never experienced and this is why a lot of times I hate analysts who never really explain or actually understood the game of football. And I can put myself in this position when I'm in too. Look, and I've actually admitted more than a handful of times, yeah, I've never played the game, but it's like one of those things. It's like, you can see where a clean hit. Now, in terms of you've seen, dirty hits in the past, obviously, if you looked at the Vontae's birth of what's going on, and how Vontae's perfect was, yeah, it's a lot different. And it's just these analysts that, for me, I would say that, or have not experienced the game, has not played the game itself, should not, really kind of look. I'm one of those people say, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but to the point where, like, the fact you're going to blame a player for a quote unquote dirty hit, let's be real, it was a clean hit. You've seen that kind of. See, I've never seen All American. That's the one show I've never really kind of got into, and it's just one of those things. It's like, and I don't know. It's just, I don't know, but I think T. Higgins gets the hope for the best, because I know I can imagine it's really kind of hard on his mental state, because of especially these keyboard warriors are trying to come after him, because unfortunately it's a freak. Number one, it's a freak accident. Number two, this is why a lot of times it's like, where I'm going to have to say something, which I have done in the past, where I have actually, even though I have put done the metaphorical grill a lot of times, definitely the Miami Dolphins are always still going to be on the grill. But, in terms of especially the league as a whole, yeah, I think the league as a whole deserves to be on the grill, and for good reason. The fact that they're not there for not for player safety it's sad, because you think this is like, you've seen like these young kids trying to live their dreams, and unfortunately with these freak accidents waiting to happen, and it's just it cuts them short a lot. Most times not just yeah, it just it's really sad because I don't want to go more further detail into it, but I have a couple more things as well, and kind of just talk on some few things as well because I really don't have much written down. My question is too, especially we talk about the NFL a lot, especially for the last good portion of the show, and kind of with some as well. What's good, Jeffy? What is good, my guy? Appreciate you coming by as well. At the same time, but my question is to you guys, that's in the chat, and for those who are watching: should Roger Goodell be held responsible after what happened to Damar Hamlin? For me, I would say yes, because this falls on him as the commissioner. You're supposed to. The fact that the commissioner most of the time, the fact that he even says, we're going to be here for player safety, we're going to take concussions more seriously and whatnot. Where's the change? Outside the fact that you only changed the concussion protocol after what happened to us on Thursday Night Football against their matchup against the Bengals. Now, this also can be put blame on the Dolphins too for the incompetent medical staff at the same time. But majority of the responsibility should be falling on the shoulders of Roger Goodell, because the fact they say if you're going to be here for player safety, we need change. And this is why I think the Player Association, whatever the Players Association and the CBA is, whatever this collective bargaining. That's what I'm saying. Like the fact you want to increase the games, but yet we've seen players draw. It's very. I mean, like, and as Jeffrey put it, hypocrisy at its finest. This also, like I said, this all stemmed back from 2011. I mean, good Lord. I mean, now will say, there's one issue in particular. I think we can all agree on that the artificial turf should have to go. Because we did see studies on it. It's really, you're at risk playing on turf. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I could not agree with that more, Jeff. I really cannot disagree with that. But, Roger Goodell at this point has to realize, with all these young players getting hurt, especially after what happens to Hamlin, there's change needs to be needed. But unfortunately, like I said before, the fact that, he's not a vested player, the fact that what I mean by that is he's not, protected by the provisions that, the NFL would have, yeah, but absolutely. So, yeah, it's only, but see, I'd rather just have the 16 games season schedule. And actually, because the way that I see it, and like I agree with everybody here in the chat though, is, it's hypocrisy at its finest. The fact you want to increase games, and you not care about player safety. And that's a good point too. You would do and especially what happened to Calvin Ridley. Got suspended for betting on games, but yet you still get these endorsements from these sportsbook companies, DraftKings, FanDuel, and definitely Underdog Fantasy at the same time as well. Like that's kind of hypocrisy at its finest. But I don't get more into that. But I would say this too. Like the one thing I think we can all agree on that the artificial turf should at least need to go, because we actually have seen studies where it's not so interesting, but you have to definitely have the recommend you read up on it, that on a natural playing surface, which we especially here in Philadelphia, we do have a natural playing surface, actually natural grass, I would say, but and you're more less at risk on natural playing surface than you do with artificial turf. And unfortunately, that's what we saw. I think 1 week where who the Giants played that. Completely forgot who it was, but like I said, one instance where Sterling Shepard unfortunately tore his ACL on a non-contact injury, and it's ridiculous that the turf is still a thing. Now, I wouldn't say, I mean, I've actually played with on turf. Yeah, it's a little bit of like I said, it's a different surface to kind of get used to at times. Yes, it is definitely putting a lot more pressure on your body because it's not a natural playing surface. Like I mentioned before. But it's something I think the Players Association has to really kind of would have to do as well. And hopefully with the next CBA, that was thank you, week 3. I swore it could have been a lot later in the season at the same time. But yeah, that was against Dallas, which is very unfortunate because I've always liked Sterling Shepard. But like I said, it was just unfortunate that he just tore his ACL on probably the worst playing surface you could probably play. And, that's just me. But Like I said, going back to what I said about the, with Hamlin not being a vested player, and I think that's when that's where my thought is just like at some point I would say, whenever that CBA is up, I do think they do need to make an argument that young players like this deserves part of that pension if they do decide to retire early. I think Luke Kuechly, I think, does fall under the provisions. He has played, I think, 3 or 4 years. I could be wrong, possibly be wrong, but for someone like Hamlin, who, let's be real, with all this, probably the medical bills that probably would be piling up right now, it's just very unfortunate. I just, it's, for me, I find it really hard the fact that these, and they're not just for player safety, but not for some of these young players are not even like they're vested players who at the same time, which is, I would say, sad at the same time. And the fact that they're not getting the same benefits and whatnot, if they retire early, which for me, I would say that's really unfair at one point. Now people are gonna say, yeah, life is unfair, whatnot. But for a team or like players like I said, with DeMar Hamlin, unfortunately, not being a vested player, and the fact that, even though he's just a backup, but he actually, unfortunately, we've seen Beals, he was getting sometimes criticized for not being in the right spots. But unfortunately, like I said, when that tackle on T. Higgins, unfortunately, took the worst blow at the worst timing, to the chest, I mean, if it could have been a lot later, then I think I'm thinking myself, what could have been a lot different had that timing not be the worst timing you could probably have in the game in the NFL. Because I mean, I just feel like, it's just one of those things. It's like, it's just like, I'm thinking, it's just like, if you could have tagged him a lot, say a little bit to the lower, like towards his legs, try to take out the legs, because we have seen that at times too. And it has at times, now it's kind of not a conventional tackle, but it's a tackle if that's effective nonetheless to kind of bring him down. But it's just, like I said, unfortunately, taking that blow to the chest really just kind of hurt him, and unfortunately scared the entire NFL world, especially to the Hamlin family was there. And it's just one of those things. It's like, for me, like I even said this too, I think I've gone to a couple streams too, for a guy, even myself, like, I can relate to it, for a guy that's in his mid-20s, that's something that I don't want to think about. And then I've actually, I'm repeating myself before, like, I have actually lost sleep because of that. And it's just one of those things. It's like, whereas, that's something you just don't want to see out of a young player that's 24 years old. Could have to be a potential husband, a father to kids, like just one of those things. It's like you do not want to think about. And the fact that, like I mentioned before, that Roger Goodell in the NFL is not for player safety and for players at all. Like, you had even like some like former players even speaking themselves out because of that. I mean, look what happened to Ryan Shazier in 2016. After it gets struck, unfortunately cut his career very short because of a bad back injury. Unfortunately, that left him, I think, paralyzed. I think it was. I could be wrong. But, I mean, we've seen probably the worst hits we've seen in NFL history, especially, and how much we've seen it. One in particular I think everyone can remember is the Antonio Brown hit from Vontaze Burfict when he was with the Bengals. Like I said, Ryan Shazier, another example. Tua Tagovailoa with the concussions, and now this. Like Jeff said, this is hypocrisy at its finest, not really want to be for the players. And I think, people can make the argument, yeah. And Antonio Brown, for me, at one point, was probably the best receivers that I've actually watched. When that hit occurred, and, it just, yeah, Mac, that shit is like, when I looked at it, it's like, oh, dude, Shazier was a special talent for me. What's good, Raphael? It's just, I'm thinking to myself, like, it was just sad, man. It really was. And especially with Antonio Brown, too, after getting smacked to the point where, if you talk about getting hit hard, like, this is like concussion, I thought he had like concussion times 2. Like, it's like, and I'm thinking to myself, like, this is gonna. I at the time I really didn't think much of it, but other than the fact that as an NFL fan, it was kind of worrying at the same time. And, it's just one of those things. It's like, I don't know. Like, it's really hard to really think of just of these injuries that we've seen so far throughout time. Like I mentioned, Antonio Brown and Vontaze Burfict. You had Tua Tagovailoa, the Ryan Shazier. Unfortunately, I think he put paralyzed his lower back. And now you had DeMar Hamlin, who, without the CPR from the medical staff, it's kid could have lost his life then and there on the field. And that's something that just really that's not going to sit well with me as an NFL fan. But thank God the EMTs, did what they could and actually managed to keep him stable to get to the hospital. So, and then the fact we get a lot of good news the last couple of days, the fact that he's actually responsive and actually breathed on his own at 50%. Yeah, I forgot about Eric LeGrand too, even though it's kind of been a while. I mean, and the only well, I won't really go too much in detail with that because that's what I'm going to about. If I did say it's going to get me demonetized, but basically, it's just, I think Hamlin at some point has to consider retirement early, which I do think is a huge possibility, especially after what just happened. But I think right now, just kind of let him hopefully get the best rest and recovery you could get. But if he comes back stronger than ever, then I could be wrong. But at some point he's got to realize, it's just really going to risk your life doing what you love. And sometimes, when you're signing up for sports, sometimes you're going to see freak injuries like that at times. I'm not saying that's what you sign up for, but it's going to happen one way or the other. Now the question is, it's going to be a lot different because for me, this is coming from me from a huge baseball head, which I've seen probably the worst injuries you could and we've seen even documentation of probably the worst injuries you could probably do in baseball history. But for a fellow athlete to one fellow athlete, another who has, I've actually, and, who've dealt with not only with the life-threatening injuries, but has dealt with some serious injuries in the past. It's just one of those things. It's like, it's hard to imagine what this kid's going through, especially his family too, that was at the game as well, which that hurt me the worst, for that. You had your parents in the attendance. Yeah. I mean, one in particular, and not just in the NBA, and I've seen the during as it should be. There should be no contest. Just leave it as it is. I mean, because for me, I just feel like the fact that you want to, and like I said, go back to what I said earlier, the fact that, after that 5-minute, break, or that long ass break, do like a 5-minute warm up. And then we come out to hear that the NFL wants to, get back to playing. It's like, what? I started shaking my head in disgust. It's like, the dude almost died on the field. And it moved forward. Absolutely. Call it no contest. Leave it be. Now, this is definitely going to, I would say, put in potential changes going down the road whenever the CBA is going to be up, especially when it comes to the AFC's playoff seeding, which is going to be very interesting. I'm going to say very interesting, but it's going to be something to really watch at the same time. But for me, it's just one of those things that's like, it's really hard to really believe it. Someone like Hamlin, unfortunately, like I said, dealt with that freak injury. It's really hard to think about, especially the last couple of days. The Monday Night Football, though, it was me and Randy, and shout out to Mitch and Philly Halftime, who were with us at the time. During that, moment where it's just like we were just kind of talking about, just kind of get stuff on our chest. We took that opportunity to just kind of get that toxic stuff off our chest and whatnot, trying to lift that burden off our shoulders. Absolutely. That's what me and Tyler were planning to do our charity stream this Thursday, actually 8:00 tonight at 8:00 after the It's Rolling podcast, because we've actually been planning to, this is kind of one of my ideas when we do whatever did to get decided to get monetized, was to do some charity live streams and raise, money to different charities, like I said, with NAMI for the mental health awareness, definitely for the autism awareness when that comes around, definitely for Spina Bonita or Bonfida, or I'm butchering that, but it's just one of those things. It's like, from what we're seeing, hear about from DeMar Hamlin, the fact that he's actually doing pretty well. And, I wouldn't be surprised if, changes immediately should be immediately implemented because of what just happened. But unfortunately, if they can't because of how long the CBA, it's just one of those. I don't know, man, but it's just that's something that none of us want to not say forget, but just something that's we don't want to think. I don't know, man, but you know, CBA. Oh boy. So we got let's see, we got another 7 years before the NBA for the CBA to expire. So that's what I'm saying. You have to. I think the Players Association is going to find a way to work this into the CBA at some point because if you're going to not say be for the players, the fact that you're going to have non-vested players to not receive the benefits and try to get at least the pension that retired players get and the benefit and like all the health benefits, whatnot. You know, that's going to be hard on the family, not just for him, but just the family as well. It's at some point it's going to be, I would say, kind of take into consideration. I don't know, but that's just the way that I wanted to see to be changed on, and and definitely try to fight this. Well, not just this, what happened to Hamlet, and also try to protect Tua at the same time. And Tua, I mean, I can see why at the same time, and it's just one of those things. It's like, for me, I would just say, it's just one of those things. It's really kind of really. I definitely would agree with Jeff, and this entire league, for as long as he's been around, yes, I mean, we have seen some horrible injuries through over time. Now, most of the time, it's been mostly hypocrisy because of what's been kind of going on the last few years, I would say. Like Jeff said, with the sports gambling, how some NFL players are getting caught with that, and the fact that you're still endorsing that at the same time. Yeah, it's really hard to say about that. Yeah, but you're not wrong, Jeff. You're not wrong. And it's just one of those things that's like this is what disgusts me as an NFL fan is that, but I appreciate that. I do appreciate that, Jeff. But like I said, go back to what you said about it's all about the money. Unfortunately, as much as we might most casual fan would disagree, but you had to look at it realistically. Yeah, that's kind of what the NFL is all about. Is kind of to get that money, and it sucks, for lack of a better term. It sucks to really see that, and this is why you see a lot sometimes former players kind of hate the idea, and like Jeff said, the fact that you're still promoting sports gambling, like. Yeah, we've seen people would do underdog fantasy, whatnot, FanDuel, DraftKings, and stuff like that. After what happened to Kevin, really getting suspended for a year for sports betting. Like, I'm thinking to myself, like that, just as Jeff put it earlier, hypocrisy at its finest, and it's it's complete BS. It's one of those things. It's like, if you're going to really be changed and stuff like that, and if this stuff over to the Players Association, definitely going to try to fight, make change for sure, certain like that. And not just that, and the NBA and the NFL has been very inconsistent with their punishments depending on the severity of what is going off the field. Like one in particular, I think we could all talk about is the Deshaun Watson situation and Calvin Ridley. So my thing is too, actually, I want to kind of talk about that is everything what happened with Watson, the fact he only gets an 11-game suspension. Hey, I'm a great. See, they should. The fact that he has 3 concussions, and like I said, Culture and Stardust, I agree with you 100%. This is why I mentioned Luke Kuechly, probably the best linebacker prospect, and really probably the best linebacker that. And I also make the argument too. This is how Carolina's defense at one point, after Luke Kuechly retired, especially in the linebacking core, kind of dropped off, and it's kind of, I would say. Yeah, I couldn't. And the fact that he had 20 years old to say 3 concussions, saying, I've had it, I'm done, and it was a good step by. Yeah, but Tua they're not going to be playing. So it looks like Scott Thompson is going to be the remaining starter for this game for Miami Dolphins, which could potentially knock them out of the playoffs. And for me, as an NFL fan, even though being a diehard Eagles fan, it's that, screw the playoffs. Let your players get healthy, especially Tua. The fact that your offensive line is so incompetent to the point where, like, you had this guy unfortunately suffered 3 concussions on 3 different occasions, even though not in there were sporadic ones at the same time. Like I said, the first one against the Bills, the people said it's a back surgery, was, like I mentioned before, it was complete BS. And you also had, like I said, the Thursday night game, which kind of really worried everybody about. Oh yeah, Jets are done as well. And actually, that's my last thing I want to talk about. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. The last thing actually says, shout out to RQ for actually bringing up the Jets. Now, we did hear reports that the Jets are definitely going to move on from Zach Wilson at the end of the year. And honestly, good riddance for me, because I feel like if you look at that draft class, you had Trevor Lawrence, and you probably had the next best thing coming out of college was Justin Fields. Unfortunately, then here comes this person named Zach Wilson at BYU. So it's like, who? Like, it's just one of those things. It's like the fact that you kind of try to weasel in and the top 2 pick, which, by the way, we see the last 2 years from Zach Wilson. At best, probably a 4th, 5th round pick at the best case scenario. Because I don't think he has not enough talent to be a 2nd, 3rd, probably late 4th, early 5th rounder. This way, if I would evaluate that, because for me, I just feel like you had better options at the quarterback position, and 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 culture and starters, I agree. And it also stems to the fact, not just from the Dolphins standpoint, but look at the NFL as a whole. They would have put money. The players prefer the person. And you see how Ryan Clark gets pissed off or gets really irritated because of that mindset. But that's where I leave it off with that. But like I said, who can be his replacement for now is definitely going to be Mike White. But long term, it could be anybody at this point. Looking at, I don't know, but I'm going to get you guys' thoughts on who's going to be, if they do just, which one was seeing reports they from reports from the Jets, they are going to be moving on from them. My question is to you guys that's watching in the chat, are probably going to see this replay by the time I'm done. Let me know in the comments down below. Who do you think is going to be Zach Wilson's replacement? For me, if they do have like a but actually, now that I think about it, let me take a look at the draft order, see where the Jets are sitting in terms of the NFL. Right now, they are sitting 13. Now, knowing that Joe Douglas has actually done pretty good with the draft the last couple of years, or especially last year in particular, this past season, actually. This past draft with Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnson, Sauce Gardner. Derek Carr could be a potential option. I've also seen, but does Derek Carr even want to come to New York? That's the biggest question. But I do think I could see that in terms of you're going to definitely get a better quarterback. He can definitely has a thick skin of things, and and has dealt with something like that, which is going to be very interesting. But outside of that, I mean, it's just one of those things. It's like it's kind of really hard to honestly not just, just how disgusting at times the NFL is acting right now to put money and put the players before the person at the same time, which I hopefully after the CBA expires, or at least try to work it into the CBA, is try to make some changes, because this is going to be a bit of an issue, I would say, going forward until that CBA expires in 2030. But I'm going to leave it off here. So, like I said, I appreciate everybody who's come to the very first episode of the NFL Talk with Rob, or Robert to be more specific. For those who call me by Philly, but that's kind of where my real name. So, shout out to all of that. But yeah. So later tonight we have a couple more shows lined up ahead of time. One of them is a charity live stream for Damar Hamlin for his the Chasing M's Foundation. You guys, anyone can pop on if you guys want to donate. I do have the pin link, GoFundMe link in the chat on that stream as well. When we get to that at the same time, and then 6:00. I appreciate that, Butterfly, but I do appreciate that. But like I said, with especially 6 o'clock, I'm going to have my buddy Afakasi Raider coming on for the Israeli podcast. So we're going to have that as well. It's going to be another fun show. But hopefully Damar Hamlin gets that rest and recovery he deserves, and should definitely still have some contemplation to do. Do you still want to come back and try to get fulfill your dream, or unfortunately, do you have to walk away at a very young age? True, that is true. So we'll have to see. Like I said, especially in terms of what happened to Hamlin, it's going to be different of a contemplation. But like I said, we'll not entirely know for sure of what's going on. But like I said, appreciate everybody who's come on, into the chat, just lets me kind of just talk NFL and whatnot. Because, probably next week's episode is probably going to be a little bit different. We're going to be just talking all around the league and just kind of breaking down what the offseason is going to be looking like, or the postseason. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. And, hopefully we'll keep Damar Hamlin in our thoughts and prayers at the same time while he's beating this at the same time. But with that being said, though, appreciate everybody's come by this show. Like I said, shout out to everybody that's in the chat at the same time. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I said, it's we don't know exactly what changes could be needed, even though it's a slim to none type of injury. That's kind of really what's happened. But like I said, we'll find out more hopefully in the next coming days. But with that being said, though, I'll see you guys in the next show.